Welcome to the Craze in 10 or less. This is the show where I give it to you in 10 minutes or under, and if I don't, I will. Stop acting up. Let's talk crazy. All right, so which came first? The chicken or the egg? Which comes first? The character or the story? How many of us have faced this question? And it's always been a great topic. At a bar, at a coffee shop with your buddies, you're always talking about, which comes first, which is most important, blah, blah, blah. It all depends. That's my answer. It all depends. So before I go into in depth, I'm going to share a story with you on why it all depends. You heard it before. You heard it on a lot of different interviews where we were at a Comic-Con and the editorial department of a newspaper liked our stuff and wanted us to come up with a sci-fi comedy comic strip for their paper. And you heard the story going through the Lincoln Tunnel. Boom, it hit me. The title. There's Nailing in My Toilet. That was the hook. So for me, in that specific instance, it was the hook that came first. That was the angle. Then, as I sat down at an IHOP, I came up with the name of the character. His name is Duty. He's from the planet Uranus. And I defined the character. Here's who Duty is. This is why he's coming to Earth. And then I started fleshing out the story. Right? So that's just an instance on how the hook came before the character, but then the character came before the story. So it's like a domino effect. Some people come up with a storyline, and they have an idea for a story. I want to write a story about a lumberjack who is 7 feet tall, and he walks around with a giant moose and a big old axe, and he goes on these crazy adventures in the forest, right? And you start fleshing out a story. I want to write about this, and it goes on all these adventures, and this is how it ties in. So it really just depends on your perspective. I read somewhere, I think it was Writing Cooperative, where they said make your protagonist necessary to the plot from the very beginning. So if you want to capture the audience's attention, again, it goes back to, do you have an endearing character? Do you have a character that relates, that the audience can relate to, that the audience can empathize with, or there's some emotional connection between the audience and the storyline and that character? I'll give you a perfect example. The evolution of Jon Snow, right? He became the character that you were rooting for in Game of Thrones. From this uncertain, insecure young man who watched the atrocities happen to his family, banished to the wall, learning how to fight, killed by his own people, resurrected, and led the people to victory, wind up just killing his love interest, who happened to be a family member. Crazy, right? But you fell in love with Jon Snow. You fell in love with Khaleesi. You fell in love with those characters. Was in a universe filled with so many characters and plot twists and stories. So I think it all depends on your perspective on how you approach the story. But here's on Writer's Digest. Should you start with plot or character, right? So when I decided I wanted to write or do this segment, I was just going through the internet to find if there's anybody else talking about the same subject, and it's a very popular subject matter. Whether the plot or character comes first when composing a novel is sort of like the chicken or the egg thing, right? It greatly depends on the author's point of view. Plot and character are so entwined that it's often hard to even separate the two. Like all elements of novel, dialogue, exposition, description, pacing, plot, and character are woven through. I think writing can be compared to weaving, where the threads are blurred within the composition of the overall pattern. So, as long as there's relevance, are you putting the characters in there because you need characters, or is there purpose of having this character? And there's so many layers to characters, right? You have your main, your primary, your secondary, right? And there's an order. You have the expendables, those fillers, those placement fillers, the background characters, right? Like if you have a king and he's like one of your main characters, and then you have his royal family, right? Secondary characters. And you have all the subjects, right? They're the fillers. They're the background fillers. Unless there's somebody within that background filler that rises within that storyline, and there's like a plot twist to it. Right? But I think in order for any of it to work, there has to be heart. There has to be heart involved. Let's see. When I wrote Forbidden, I think Forbidden started with the plot. Like I came up with a story idea, right? I said, all right, I have an idea for a story of a race, a population of people, centuries that lived on Earth centuries ago. There were hunters and farmers and warriors that went into a forest that they weren't supposed to, and they were given a choice to give the people that desecrated the land, or they'll all suffer a curse. And the race was being killed off by the sun the next day because of the curse, and they went underground, never to be seen again. While they lived underground for centuries, the world has evolved to modern day technology, right? But descendants of the ones who cast the curse are rising in power to take over the world. And the only threat is an heir to the king of those fallen people would come back and be the one to destroy their intentions. Right? So that's how. So I created this storyline, and then the characters started coming after. Right? So, but the characters had to have purpose. So I knew that you had evil, you had good, you had intention, right? You had motive. And I think those are the things. As long as you have all the ingredients, it's like, making pasta, right? You want your herbs and your spices and your oregano. You want your sauce, your tomatoes, your fresh tomatoes, your diced onions and garlic and all that stuff. You're going to add all those ingredients because in the end you have a great, plate of pasta. So again, it all depends on you. And as long as you get to your destination. So I'd love to, hear what your thoughts are about this. Which you think is most important, or what comes first, the character or the story or the plot? I'm Stan the Crazy Man. This is the Craze in 10 or Less. Hey, this Friday I will be on JD Calderon's podcast on YouTube, and come and check us out. It'll be up on the page, and let's chat it up Friday night, 9:30 p.m. this Friday. I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell. Don't miss any other episodes going forward. Catch the Craze. Peace.